cities.
Good evening and welcome to Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. Former Pope Benedict XVI has died at the age of 95. Russia launches dozens of missiles at cities across Ukraine. Auckland and Sydney become the first major cities to start celebrations welcoming in year 2023. My name is Evelyn Ohiola. Now the news and details. Former Pope Benedict XVI has died aged 95, almost a decade after he stood down because of ailing health. He led the Catholic Church for fewer than 8 years until 2013, when he became the first pope to resign since Gregory XII in 1415. Benedict spent his final years as at a monastery within the walls of the Vatican, where he passed away this morning. His successor, Pope Francis, will lead the funeral on the 5th of January. The Vatican said the body of the Pope Emeritus will be placed in St. Peter's Basilica from the 2nd of January for the greeting of the faithful. Bells rang out from Munich Cathedral and a single bell was heard ringing from St. Peter's Square in Rome after the former Pope's death was announced. A landslide has crushed at least 8 people and seriously injured 9 others near an artisanal mine in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Administrator of Fizi Territory in South Kivu Province said the wounded are in a critical condition and receiving treatment at a local health facility. Landslides are relatively common in the hilly slopes of Eastern Congo, where heavy rains can saturate and loosen soil, but they are most likely to occur if soil has been disturbed by mining, tree felling, or construction. In December, intense rains in Congo's capital, Kinshasa, caused flooding and landslides that killed around 170 people. In Europe, Russia has launched dozens of missiles at cities across Ukraine. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said there had been several blasts in the city, causing damage and at least 1 death. The attacks happened 2 days after Russia carried out one of the largest airstrikes since the start of the war. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned Russia could launch more attacks to make Ukrainians celebrate the New Year in darkness. In Kyiv, amid New Year celebrations, people rushed to shelters as air raid sirens sounded at lunchtime. Emergency workers were sent to 3 districts hit by explosions, while air defense has been activated in regions across the country. In the meantime, Russian President Vladimir Putin today said his country would never give in to the West's attempts to use Ukraine as a tool to destroy Russia. In a New Year's video message broadcast on Russian state TV, Putin said Russia was fighting in Ukraine to protect its motherland and to secure true independence for its people. In a 9-minute message, the longest New Year's address of his 2-decade rule, Putin accused the West of lying to Russia and of provoking Moscow to launch what it calls a special military operation in Ukraine. Earlier on Saturday, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu had vowed that victory in Ukraine was inevitable, as he praised the heroism of Russian soldiers fighting on the front lines and those who had died during the 10-month war. A court in Mali has sentenced 46 soldiers from Ivory Coast to 20 years imprisonment for conspiring against the government and 3 others to death in absentia. 49 Ivorian soldiers were arrested at the airport in Mali's capital, Bamako, in July. 3 of whom were later released. The arrests led to a diplomatic dispute between the neighboring countries and widespread condemnation from regional allies. Mali's ruling junta said the soldiers were acting as mercenaries, while Ivory Coast said they were part of a United Nations peacekeeping mission. In the United States, police say a criminology graduate has been arrested in the mysterious killings of 4 university students in the state of Idaho last month. Brian Christopher Kobaga was detained in Pennsylvania, over 2,500 miles from the crime scene. The University of Idaho students were found stabbed to death in their beds in a rental home near the campus on the 13th of November. Police say the suspect lived in a town near where the murders occur. The suspect has been held in Monroe County, Pennsylvania. Latta County prosecutor Bill Thompson told a news conference the accused faces 4 counts of first-degree murder and felony burglary. The suspect, who is expected to be extradited to Idaho, has already appeared before a judge and was remanded in custody without bail.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Bill Thompson. I'm the Latah County prosecutor. And it's sad to be here, but happy to be here at the same time. As Chief Fry indicated, a criminal complaint was filed yesterday here in Latah County, charging the defendant, Mr. Kohlberger, with 4 counts of first-degree murder, in addition to felony burglary, which involves entering the residence with the intent to commit the crime of murder. Mr. Kohlberger, and let me preface, there is a pending case now in court, and I and my office and the investigators have to live with the restrictions that our Supreme Court places on pretrial publicity.
Palestinians today welcomed a vote by the United Nations General Assembly requesting that the International Court of Justice should provide an opinion on the legal consequences of Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territories. Yesterday's present a challenge for Israel's incoming Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who took office on Thursday at the head of a hard-right government that includes parties who advocate for occupied West Bank lands to be annexed. Israel captured the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem areas the Palestinians want for a state in a 1967 war, but peace talks broke down in 2014. Nabil Abu Rudana, spokesman for Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, said the time has come for Israel to be a state subject to law and to be held accountable for its ongoing crimes against the Palestinian people. Israeli officials have not yet issued a comment on the vote, though it was condemned by Israel's UN envoy Gilad Erdan before it was held as the Jewish Sabbath began. Turning to South America, Venezuela's opposition has voted to dissolve its parallel government and remove its leader, Juan Guaido. The move comes 4 years after Mr. Guaido declared himself president following the re-election of Nicolas Maduro in disputed polls. It was recognized by many Western countries, including the United States, but failed to oust the left-wing president. The vote shows how most opposition politicians in Venezuela have lost faith in Mr. Guaido. The National Assembly voted 72 to 29 to abolish his interim government. Lawmakers also voted to appoint a commission to govern the country's foreign assets as they seek a united front ahead of elections scheduled for 2024. Venezuela's long-running political and humanitarian crisis has seen some 7 million people flee the country since 2015. You're still watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. We'll be back after this break.
Evelyn Ohiole,
Hi.
King Eve. How are you today?
I'm good, I'm fine, I'm alive.
I really feel like she's not giving the right answer to the question. When one asks you, how are you? And you said, you're saying, I'm alive. It's very annoying, seriously. How are you? I'm fine. I feel I'm fine would be the right answer instead of I'm alive. Not that I asked you if you're dead before.
Go and check all these 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, everybody, they are extraordinarily sexually active.
I feel is being unnecessarily hyper when it comes to the issue of sex, because we talk about other topics and he feels so reserved. He really doesn't have anything much to say when it comes to other stuff. But when it's the issue of sex, I believe he's being unnecessarily hyper. That's when I have to pick an issue with him. I mean, it's just being unnecessarily there when we're talking about sex. Just like a child, his mom just got him his favorite chocolate or ice cream, very happy, doing as though if he doesn't have sex for a day, he's going to die.
When it comes to finance, women also support their husbands financially. You need me emotionally. You need me spiritually.
Cassie is an amazing person, but I hate the too much attachment to that gender. I need you spiritually, I need you mentally. I can get these things anywhere with money. If you go by the topic was, who does marriage favors the most? I know how many jobless women they marry every Saturday. They are saying it favors you.
Welcome back. Auckland in New Zealand has become the first major city to start celebrations welcoming in 2023 with fireworks launched from the city's Sky Tower. The Australian city of Sydney has also entered the new year with the city's fireworks launched from its Harbour Bridge, Opera House and barges in its famous harbour. This was followed by Brisbane on the Gold Coast. Amongst the first places to usher in the new year was Kiritimati Island in the Central Pacific Ocean. However, the small outlying islands of the United States will be the last to see 2023. Baker Island and Howland Island, which are unoccupied, will enter 2023 at 12 p.m. tomorrow. Meanwhile, Nigerians have expressed great optimism as they expect the year 2023 to be a good one in all sectors of the country. In separate interviews with Western Spring Television News, citizens who are eagerly awaiting the country's general election voiced hope that the year will be pleasant enough ahead of the polls. Some others also hope to live and make remarkable achievements during the course of the coming year.
I just want to live, because I'm going to finish school next year. I don't know what is outside yet. I just want to experience life, and I hope it's easy for me.
Of course, I expect next year to be better than this year. And this year is good. Yeah, we thank God for that. But I expect next year to be better. Yeah, and even for Osun State and for Nigeria, I expect next year to be better because next year is going to be an election year for us. So, and I believe that after the election, other things should work better for this country.
All my plans, all my agendas, everything that I plan for 2022, I make it even more than the way I even want. So I'm very grateful to God Almighty for that. So 2023, we are hoping for the best.
We're just expecting a very good year to come. at least in this new year. You know, the inflation in this year is so high, and we are hopeful that the general election will go peacefully and a good presidential election will be elected. So that is what we are expecting, and a very good year in generally. Hopefully, that the year will be better than this year.
Live, eat, survive. Actually not exist, but try to live. You know, there's a difference between existing and living. I actually existed this year, so I think I want to live next year. And do things that matters. Basically, that's just it.
Hey, this year was quite stressful. So next year, I just want to flex, because this year was too much, and I believe life is short because people they die any seconds, any time. So next year, I want to live my life to the fullest and make memory with family and friends.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for more effort and unity as the country enters a new phase in its approach to combating the pandemic. And its first comments to the public on COVID-19 since his government changed course 3 weeks ago and relaxed its rigorous policy of lockdowns and mass testing. China's abrupt switch earlier this month from the zero-COVID policy that it had maintained for nearly 3 years has led to infections sweeping across the country unchecked. It has also called a further drop in economic activity and international concern, with Britain and France becoming the latest countries to impose curbs on travelers from China. In a televised speech to mark the new year, Mr. Xi said China had overcome unprecedented difficulties and challenges in the battle against COVID, and that its policies were optimized when the situation and time so required. In the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has warned that the UK's problems will not go away in 2023 after a tough 12 months. In his New Year message, the Prime Minister promised the very best of Britain will be on display in the coming months as he pledged continuing support for Ukraine. He also predicted that King Charles's coronation on the 6th of May would bring the country together.
Not immune to. Now, I know 2022 was tough. Just as we recovered from an unprecedented global pandemic, Russia launched a barbaric and illegal invasion across Ukraine. This has had a profound economic impact around the world, which the UK is not immune to. Now, I know many of you have felt that impact at home. That's why this government has taken difficult but fair decisions to get borrowing and debt under control. And it's because of those decisions that we've been able to help the most vulnerable with the rising cost of energy bills. 3 months ago, I stood at the steps of Downing Street and promised I would work relentlessly on the things that matter most to you. Since then, this government has taken decisive action to back our NHS with record resources to tackle the backlogs, more funding, more doctors, and more nurses. We're also tackling illegal migration and stopping criminals from abusing our asylum system.
In other news, protesters in Bolivia's Santa Cruz, a relatively wealthy farming region, have attacked buildings, burned cars, and blocked highways as part of a 24-hour strike following the arrest of the regional governor, a right-wing opposition leader. As night fell, protesters in part of the provincial capital touched cars and tires and threw fireworks towards police, who used tear gas to try to disperse the crowds. The protests are the latest face-off between Santa Cruz, led by Governor Luis Fernando Camacho, and leftist President Luis Arce's government. Camacho was detained on Wednesday on a charge of terrorism for his alleged involvement in 2019 political unrest that saw then-President Evo Morales flee the country. He was sentenced to 4 months of pre-trial detention late Thursday and was transferred to a maximum security prison earlier Friday morning. Camacho has maintained his innocence and called his arrest and transport to La Paz, the country's capital, a kidnapping, but prosecutors deny that the arrest was a kidnapping or politically motivated. In the Middle East, Iran's Supreme Court has accepted a protester's appeal against his death sentence for allegedly damaging public property during anti-government demonstrations and sent his case back for review. This was confirmed by the country's judiciary today. 25-year-old Noor Mohammadzadeh was arrested on October 4th and sentenced to death 2 months later on the charge of waging war against God for allegedly trying to break a highway guardrail in Tehran and setting a rubbish bin on fire. He rejected the accusation, saying he was forced to confess to his guilt and went on a hunger strike 2 weeks ago. Iran has already executed 2 people involved in unrest that erupted in September after the death in custody of Kurdish Iranian woman Mahsa Amini, who was arrested by morality police enforcing the country's strict dress code for women. Amnesty International has said Iranian authorities are seeking the death penalty for at least 26 others in what the campaign group has said is a push to intimidate protesters. Moving to sports, substitute Marcus Rashford scored the winner for Manchester United in the English Premier League against Wolves after being dropped to the bench for disciplinary reasons. According to manager Erik ten Hag, Rashford was left out of the starting 11 over an internal disciplinary matter. The England international was brought on at half-time and scored after a fine 1-2 with Bruno Fernandes. Rashford also had the ball in the net a second time, but it was ruled out by the video assistant referee for handball. LeBron James scored a season-high 47 points on his 38th birthday as the Los Angeles Lakers beat the Atlanta Hawks 130-121. He also made 10 rebounds and 9 assists at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta. The Hawks led by 15 points at halftime, but James scored 13 in the third quarter and 16 in the fourth for a Lakers side missing Anthony Davis. James said they promised his teammates 40 points before the game. James scored 48 points against the Hawks on his 25th birthday in 2009.
As long as I keep my mind fresh, then my body will fall where it may. And it's always good to come out here with my teammates. They worked their butts off tonight. You caught it before game. I caught it before. You say you're going to get 40. I told him before the game. So I had to make it happen. After starting 1 for 5, I didn't know what was going to happen. But, just going out there and playing for my teammates. It's been a decent road trip the last 2 games. Haven't went to last game. Didn't go the way we wanted to go. But we want to finish off the road trip the right way. Starting tonight and then finishing in Charlotte in a few nights.
Before we end Spring Global, here is a recap of our top stories. Former Pope Benedict XVI has died, aged 95, almost a decade after he stood down because of ailing health. Russia has launched dozens of missiles at cities across Ukraine. Auckland in New Zealand has become the first major city to start celebrations welcoming in 2023 with fireworks launched from the city's Sky Tower. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Evelyn Ohiola. Thank you so much for watching.